2400. Recording in progress. Got it. The 2400 playwrights that we serve each year. I am thrilled to welcome you to the 38th annual PlayLabs Festival as part of our 50th anniversary this year. Can you believe it? You can chat me and tell me whether you believe it or not, but it's true. Speaking of the chat, feel free to use the chat tonight and kind of cheer folks on and all of that as we go. This evening, you are joining us for the launch of our PlayLabs Festival, featuring a conversation with 3 of the extraordinary playwrights featured this year: Darren Canady, Mathilde Dratwa, and Stacey Rose. Folks are tuning in from all around the globe to watch their gorgeous new works. And in the middle of this moment of humanitarian struggle, to say the least, in our world, we are grateful that you are choosing to spend your time and energy to show up to listen to story with us today and throughout this next week of the festival. We will be doing a brief toast at the end of tonight's discussion. And if you are so moved to raise a glass of whatever you use to celebrate, we would love to have you at the end of this moment, in a few minutes, join us in kicking off PlayLabs 38. As always, we acknowledge that Playwrights Center is located on the traditional and unceded land of the Dakota and Anishinaabe Ojibwe people. We offer our gratitude to this land for the privilege of gathering and sharing stories like the ones you'll hear about tonight, and for the work of Indigenous activists past, present, and future who steward this land and who challenge us to be partners rather than owners of it. We at Playwrights Center reaffirm our commitment to learning how best we can continue to advocate in partnership with Native artists and activists. We invite each of you at home to do the same and to learn about and support, please support the incredible Native organizations, of which there are many brilliant ones here in the Twin Cities around Minnesota, or as importantly, in your local community as well. Julia put a link to our list on our website. This afternoon, we held the very first event of the festival, which is our amazing Fellows Showcase that included the work of our incredible Jerome, Many Voices, and McKnight writers this season. If you weren't able to join us, I would love to invite you to check out these amazing playwrights. Julia just put the link in the chat on our website. I'm going to say their names because they're geniuses and you want to know how to get in touch with them. Lucas Beish, Zola D, Marvin Gonzalez de Leon, Gethsemane Heron, Christina Luzarga, Jacoby Johnson, Lester Mayers, Nubia Monks, Atlas Robinson, James Anthony Tyler, PC Barone, and James Williams. Let's do a clap for these writers. These writers have had a year in this Omicron wave, and we're really grateful for their incredible fortitude and bravery and courage in moving their work forward. Please, if you work at a theater, celebrate them, cheer them on, watch for them, or, write a commission check. No one ever doesn't like a commission check. With Darren's play, The Percy Meacham Dance Experience, and Mathilde's play, Dirty Laundry, each creative team had a week in a Zoom room rehearsing and rewriting the play. And then everyone flew to the Twin Cities, here to the Playwrights Center, and followed by another week of rehearsal here in town. At the end of the workshops, we filmed each of those 2 readings and then edited them, courtesy of our amazing team, Mohammed Yabdri, Peter Morrow, Rachel Breeze, Kathy Maxwell, and our extraordinary producing team of Haley Finn, Julia Brown, and Chloe Armeo. Big applause for that amazing team. Amazing team. They didn't go to bed last night, I promise you. And then given the nature of Stacey's incredible new piece, Trapped, and the fact that Stacey and her amazing team of collaborators spread across the country, they opted for an entirely online workshop. And so we workshopped it, and that performance was edited and mastered via an online format. As a set of sort of rolling new plays, tonight we will be releasing Darren and Mathilde's plays, and then tomorrow in the festival at 7 p.m. we will be releasing Stacey's piece. So we're really excited for you and for the rest of the world to check out these brilliant new theatrical works. And I just want to encourage you, as always, they are on for a week. So please check them out, and also please share the information with your friends and colleagues. We'd love to have folks, as many as possible, who love story and love theater and who crave brilliant artists as leaders to guide us through this moment, take us into the next chapter of our country's very complicated history. So without further ado, let's meet some geniuses. Let's hear from the creators themselves. Please help me welcome to the screen, Darren Canady, Mathilde Dratwa, and Stacey Rose. Clapping and cheering abounding. Hello, beautiful people.
Hi.
Hello, sorry.
And Stacey Rose. I love you so much.
I feel like I'm always the Charlie Brown of the situation.
At least you're not pulling the football away.
No, I'm not.
Lucy's a great peanut.
Lucy is a great peanut, and I see where our conversation is already heading tonight. Mathilde, it's your turn to chime in. It would be hard to love these three artists any more than we already do here at Playwrights Center. They have come here from three very different paths, and I treasure these very individual ways of how these pieces have made their way to the festival, and the many years that we will get to support Darren and Mathilde and Stacey for years ahead. I'm going to give you just a brief bio. I know you know a lot about them, and again, you can read all about folks on our website. So just briefly, Darren Canady, hello. Darren's work has been produced at American Conservatory Theater, the Aurora Theater, Alliance Theater, Congo Square, Horizon, the Old Vic in London, M Ensemble, Milwaukee Repertory Theater, at the Edinburgh Festival Fringe, and American Blues, and many others. His awards include the Canady Graduate Playwriting Award at the Alliance, Chicago's Black Excellence Award, and the Black Theater Alliance Award, as well as an American Theater Critics Association's Osborne Award. He is an alum of Carnegie Mellon, of Tisch at NYU, and the Juilliard School. And Darren currently inspires minds and artists around the world, and certainly at the University of Kansas, where he teaches playwriting. Please help me welcome the amazing Darren Canady. Hi, Darren.
Hey, folks.
Hi, Mathilde. You're next. Mathilde Dratwa. Mathilde's plays include Milk and Gall, which was produced at Theatre 503, brilliant theater in the UK. A play about David Mamet writing a play about Harvey Weinstein, one of my favorite plays ever written in the entire history of the world. Please read this play if you haven't. And the play that you are going to see over the course of this week, Dirty Laundry, which is also a commission from Audible. Mathilde's work has been developed and presented at the ground floor of Berkeley Rep, Rattlestick, Labyrinth, the Great Plains Theatre Conference, here at Playwrights Center, the Orchard Project, and in London at the Young Vic. So many Vics, so little time. Mathilde was also a recent Dramatists Guild Foundation Fellow, a member of New York Foundation for the Arts Immigrant Artist Program, and a two-time Pulitzer Center grant recipient. Please help me welcome the amazing Mathilde Dratwa. Mathilde Dratwa, we love you. All right, Stacey Rose, you ready for it? This is what Taylor Swift said. I gave you a little T Swift intro there, Stacey. Stacey is a Charlotte-based.
Stacey makes sandwiches and sits in her house and cries a lot. Okay.
I know.
So
Girl.
My best friend Stacey Rose and her best friend Darren Canady. Stacey is a Charlotte-based, award-winning, nationally produced playwright whose work celebrates and explores Blackness, Black identity, body politics, and the dilemma of life as the other. Stacey has held fellowships and residencies with the Arts and Science Council, the Dramatists Guild, here at Playwrights Center, Sundance Theater Lab, the Goodman Theaters, the Civilians, and Toffee Lake Center. Her work has been presented at the Fire This Time Festival, The Lark, the Amoralist Theater Company, Rattlestick, National Black Theater, Pillsbury House and Theater, Barrington Stage, and Kansas City Rep. Stacey currently writes for 911, that's right, y'all, on Fox. Stacey also, and I really want to encourage you all to take this moment away and make sure you go do your research about this. Stacey also co-founded the very important Queen City New Play Initiative to support local Southern playwrights in the creation of new work for the stage. Please check out Queen City New Play Initiative if you haven't already. It is brilliant. They got me through the pandemic. Brilliant artists and writers. So please help me welcome Stacey Rose. So I think maybe we'll just do a couple questions tonight, friends, just so that we can kind of get the kind of juices rolling for what we're really thinking about for the next week here. So again, at the end of this session tonight, after we're done talking in a few minutes, you should probably, if you've already signed up, you already have an email in your inbox ready to rock about performances that are ready for you to stream, but they're available. Again, Darren's and Mathilde's are available tonight for the next week, and then Stacey's rolls out tomorrow for the week. So check it out, check it out, check it out. So, okay, let's start with this. What's the biggest question for each of you about your play heading into the festival? And then what was the biggest surprise or realization that you had in the process? So what was the question you had going into it? And then in the process, what was the biggest either surprise or realization? Darren Canady, let's start with you.
You ain't right for that. Honestly, the biggest surprise, the biggest question was how to end this play. Like just straight up. So that's the practical side of that. The biggest surprise.
How to end the play, as in you had multiple endings and you weren't sure which felt right, or the play was heading somewhere new and you weren't sure where.
So in the run up to it, I disliked the ending that it had. I was like, this ending is trash. So I 86'd it. And I just kind of went back to, I tried to remind myself that one of the good things about teaching is that I need to pay attention to the things I tell my students. And so I realized I needed to go back to what was even my original impulse to explore this and to let that guide, trying to figure out where's this supposed to go, because I had lost sense of that. And so it became a question of where is this play going, and why? What way can I not betray my audience? What can I surprise them with? But also feel like they had a meal. I think I may be thinking meal because of the also having the virtual dinner party before this, but like that was the thing. Like, how can I make this feel like I've sat down and had eaten something and not stand up from the table and just say, oof, you served me, you didn't even serve me heavy hors d'oeuvres. You served me a thought and nothing to follow it up with. So that, this is a hard one. My surprise, my discovery, this is it. How much, because the piece was always the exploration of the festival was to see how much work could be done with movement as opposed to just text, which I was so comfortable with. I was surprised at how smooth and how possible it was to release the need to control the experience of the play through text. I am so used to like saying, okay, I am going to use the text, the dialogue to control so much of what's happening here. And once I said, okay, these are dancers and I'm interested in people who express through embodiment, and I'm going to tell as much of the story as possible through movement. I came in saying this is going to be hard for me, and it was so nice to let other people create in concert and in symphony almost with the text that I was generating. So that's
part of the exploration for when people are going to watch this. That's a lot of what we're learning about as they watch it, is you're going to see a lot of movement. You are definitely going to see a brand new end to this play. But that's the thing, right? I mean, we really do encourage people. We know that this year is filmed, and so it kind of takes on this extra layer of kind of lift to it in some way. But really, the Playwrights Center is meant to be a sandbox. It really is a lab for you to play and experiment and say, this worked and also this didn't work, and I want to do it differently next time, you know.
Amen and amen. Amen and amen.
Mathilde, I'm gonna go over to you for a second. Same for you. Kind of what was a question you had going into it, and kind of what was a realization or surprise for you? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. I had one of my first my first full production in November. And what I learned from that experience that was different from the lessons of readings and sort of shorter workshops, which is all I'd had up to that point, is that the transition, the way that the play functioned, the transitions, solving the transitions sort of solved the play. And when we figured out that we started with sort of sorry, this is a little bit of a tangent, but we started with sort of like lyrical music and like soft fades in and out of scenes. And it was creating this idea that things were sort of temporary, like it was all wrong. Tonally, it was all wrong. And it was just interesting to learn, you know, coming from working in the US where we develop things so much, and then going to London for my first production, that the lessons are different and what you learn is different. And so going into this project and this longer workshop than anything I'd had before, I was particularly thinking about the transitions in the piece and how this particular piece, I think the transitions are a little bit like jump cuts. So it's not this happens, and then later in the day this happens, and then it's sort of like this happens, and then this character leaves the situation and immediately is thrust in this other situation. And there's a communication problem between most of the characters in the piece. And so what ended up happening, I have a chorus in the piece, and the discovery was that all of this sort of transitional, the chorus would start a lot of the scenes and end a lot of the scenes, and I just got rid of it all. And I sort of really decided to lean into the fact that I wanted it to operate in that way. So that was both the question and also the surprise. And I guess the surprise is also linked to the fact that the play has a much more of a rhythm of its own than I have written before. And I hesitate to say this in Stacey's presence because obviously her work is going to be very rhythmic. I assume, I haven't seen it, but rhythm is probably, you know, going to be a big piece of that. But for me, I've never worked that way before. And so the idea that not only in the transitions, but also in the way that the chorus speaks and the parts that are choral and the parts that are not choral, and the way that the play moves, there's a lot more emphasis than I've been used to, that I found in even just the layout and what it looks like on the page and where the line breaks are and things like that, which is sort of a rhythmical question.
There was a question in there real quickly, just to say Mathilde's play is called Dirty Laundry, and Darren's play is called The Percy Meacham Dance Experience. And Stacey Rose, Dr. Stacey Rose, is the writer of the play Trapped. Stacey, what were your questions going into this?
Have I lost the thread? And I had a really good conversation with, it just so happens me and Darren were in Kansas at the same time. And a lot of the conversation, first of all, Darren is a spirit. Darren is the spirit of Unstuck. And it's just like, every time I feel like I'm stuck in process, which I really was. And I really, like, honestly, this process felt like an existential crisis, like, and in all of the best and worst ways. Like, it just felt, I was so like, I haven't, first of all, to give it context, I haven't written plays, like actively written plays for theater. Like, I've kind of written scenes and written short things that have gotten seen. And those short things I've been really, really happy with, but I hadn't really looked at a longer piece in a very long time. And I hadn't put hands on this in a very long time, since like literally the December before the pandemic.
Right.
And so I felt like there was this huge chasm between whoever I was when I decided it was a good idea to write a play about trap with my son, and the person I am, you know, a million people dead later in a pandemic. And it felt like I was very self-conscious. The play was calling for me to write lyrics, which is poetry, and I'm very insecure. Like when it comes to writing literal poetry, I am so fucking insecure about that. I'm so like.
Why do you feel insecure? What do you think it comes
Well,
from? I think of you as such a poetic,
honest,
lyrical writer.
We're gonna be honest tonight. So
yeah.
No. This was so this
Lean
actually
in.
is the haunting of my so I began as a poet, actually. I began as a poet around the era where slam poetry was popular. And I was like not confident enough in my body and my voice or anything like that to be a person who could slam, and everybody was slamming. And I felt like my poetry was less because it wasn't doing all of these things that everyone else's poetry was doing. And so I kind of tucked that part of myself who wrote like this really like I feel like I'm being filleted open when I write poetry because it's so simple and I can't use a million words to kind of layer on top of the thing, right? And so yeah, like it was fine for me. It was finding the thread. I was really glad that me, G, and Ken Matt were able to actually be in a room together here in Charlotte. Which felt really important, and actually brought Zion into process in a way, because he's really kind of been dealing with this project as this thing my mom's doing, but I'm just doing beats for it. And I'm like, no, Zion, like literally, we have to tell this story together or there's no story. Like I'm 46 years old writing a play about trap music by myself. It doesn't, like for me, it doesn't add up. And so he and I had conversations about what it means to have different generations of folks in a room on the piece, which was absolutely like, when I tell you every generation of hip hop was represented in that room, it was bananas. And we had really great conversations. So it kind of became this little bit of like this chaotic play, like kind of sandbox that we played around in. And in the process, I figured out what the structure of this thing is. I've figured out that me and Zion are writing together more. And the surprise for me is that me and my son wrote a song and I don't hate it. And when I say like his part of it, like, of course, I'm like, his part of it is amazing. And mine is like, I don't know. But it's but no, like honestly, I could hear it. And so it was this process was so less about results oriented. Like honestly, we'll see what gets cut, guys. But for me, it really was this kind of finding me as playwright again, finding what collaborate, like true collaborate, because me and Zion almost fell out. Like the night Ken Matt got here, we made him come over here because he was being very like, here's a beat, here's that. And I'm like, no, bring your ass over here and let's have a conversation about what this week is going to be. And so he did. And I think he really understood and appreciated being brought in and feeling like a collaborator and feeling like we were writing things together. So yeah, so it's been kind of, it was a birthing process in this really wild way. And yeah, so that's what this piece is.
You know, it's amazing. I mean, I'm saying this very selfishly, Stacey, too, but with you having, you know, spent so many years at the center and you know, just in every possible way being part of this organization, and knowing Zion from afar, and then how special it was to be in that workshop you're saying in December, even though we had like an ice storm, of course, that happened or something that knocked us out, but to have Zion here and welcome him as family into this space and create that work was stunning. And it was really special. It just was it's an incredibly special collaboration.
Yeah.
I love that as a collaborator, you still snatched him up
Oh no, well, no, I have to give props to Kim Matt because he really avoided World War. He evaded World War III was getting ready to happen in my living room. Because I was just like, fuck you mean you sent us these? And Kim Matt's like, wait a minute, just tell me to come over.
Time out.
I'm like, you got shit to do too. And he's like, don't talk to him like that. I'm like, what you talking about?
Yeah, I was like, you don't talk to any of your collaborators like that just because he's your kid.
That's the part.
That's
and I really,
sad.
like, I had to put him in the collaborator pocket. Like, I really did have to give him, and I thank God for G, because him and G were over there working some shit out.
Yeah.
And I was like, let me let y'all work that shit out while I'm over here and I'm listening and answering questions and writing. And there was something else going on because I've always got at least 3 things going on. So they're like, so I'm just like, balance this on your knee and then put this on your head. And so, but that week was like, it was, at the end of it, I was exhausted, but I also was just very like full. And that, like, I feel like me and Zion literally will probably write, do a music project together at this point. It was that enjoyable.
Incredible. This, I mean, you know, we're very lucky, all of us, as challenging as this life is. It is also, we are very fortunate to have these opportunities, and they're not guaranteed, and we don't know what the path is. And you know, Mathilde, you had shared, you know, kind of in a recent event also about the nature of dirty laundry. And I just think about our opportunities to revisit things in a personal way, but really look at narrative and kind of how we kind of want to shift it as well. So I guess maybe Mathilde, I'll come back to you and say, so if you could share one thing, and maybe it could be about dirty laundry, and maybe it can just be, this is how my heart is sitting tonight. You could share one thing for what you want for audiences, what you want to see as an audience member, as an artist audience member. What do you want your kid to be watching? What do you think our stages want to be and feel, and why is dirty laundry kind of part of that for you right now?
Yeah, I think, well, more, you know, dirty laundry is actually more about sort of a personal thing that happened, but my other plays are very much in relation to responses to moments in time. And I think that I would be interested in a theater where things can happen quickly, and we can write in response to like a cultural or a political moment, and then see that and give that to an audience so that they can see that on a stage at the moment that it was sort of intended to be seen. And so I'm curious about ways that maybe theaters can, I understand, you know, they have to plan a season and what that takes and what that looks like, et cetera. But I wonder if there's a way to make space for work that wants to be. I think it's so thrilling when I see things that feel so of the moment, but half of the time that's accidental, you know, like it was actually written before, or and you know, that's partly zeitgeist, and there's a lot of reasons for that. But I think that I would be interested in seeing plays that are in conversation with each other, plays that are a response to current events, to yeah, that's something that I'm interested in, and so that's one piece of it. And I think the other piece is that I'm aesthetically, I love the theater. I've also been writing for TV, and it's a different beast. And I think that I'm interested in theater that is theatrical, where there is spectacle, where that couldn't exist in other ways. And so that is, as an audience member, that is what I'm drawn to content-wise, things that experiment with form, things that benefit from being live rather than recorded in any way.
I love that. And I also think you know, I'm thinking about your piece so much, and I know you're saying, oh, well, it's different than the other two pieces, in particular, those other two pieces, and in that it's deeply personal. And yet for me, why I'm so I'm just going to speak selfishly and impose this on top of your play. I'm so sorry. And yet here I go. I feel like the world that I'm curious about in 2022 is a world in which people are trying to move towards either rebellion or understanding, that they're moving towards boundary setting towards health, and also towards compassion, that those complexities can live together in relation to one another, and in which the personal is about how we go through the world. Like it's just what the last 10 years, even technology and the climate and everything that's happening, like our world has gone from like this to this, and it is going like this again really fast. So I think I just want to name that there is something actually deeply personally political about the play to me, even though I know your intention isn't I'm trying to solve a thing or name a thing or address a thing, but the Greek nature of this piece, the classic nature of this piece, is such that I think it calls into question our ability as humans to show up to one another with love, with our fear, with our baggage, with our sadness, and with our joy, with our great, great joy and love for one another, despite our complete and utter ridiculousness. So I love that about your play.
I should have recorded that so that I could say that next time, but thank you.
Darren Canady, how about for you? I mean, I know you're still figuring out this piece, and I obviously have been watching. I mean, I know you're only 23, so it's hard to imagine you've written this many plays in such a short time. But
Right.
no, really, truly though, like knowing your work over the years, like each play is so radically different one from another in terms of not just like what it's about, but like what it's working on and what it's working towards. What is this play working towards? What is it? I'm watching this play. What do I walk with? What do you want me to walk with?
You know, the very first vestiges, the wisps of smoke, the ghosts that spoke to me about this play first existed before the pandemic. But what the play is now could not exist before the pandemic. And I will say what it's working towards. I think what the last couple of years have forced me to think about, because one of my big concerns about the play, because it is about a dance company and what's happening with it, is I have worried about, is it too inside baseball? Is it, you know, one of the best pieces of advice I received in grad school my screenwriting professor at NYU, Charlie Pepper was like, don't write about writers. Nobody cares about writers. You want to sit, nobody wants to see you sit there in front of your laptop. You don't care about, nobody cares about artists. I was like, oh, I feel like an attack. And so I wondered, you know, with the piece, could I break apart the thing that made me passionate about it to look at some of the other things? And so the obsession for me became not only this art, but how we make choices about legacy and how we decide about what to break apart and what to burn to the ground, and how we decide what needs to be created and what needs to be built. And I think sitting in, you know, there was something that I was meant to experience about being a member, a core writer of Playwrights Center, straddling George Floyd's murder. And I'm still parsing through what that is, but I can think about what it was like to be in conversation with the staff before, and the feelings of 2020 and after, and feeling that shift, and feeling how the world was talking about things in one way, but the folks in Minneapolis were feeling it in a very specific, visceral kind of way. And I think there's no way to pull that apart from talking about what is Black in America, right? Who gets to talk, who gets to dictate that, who gets to define it? And I think in 2020, with We See You White American Theater, with a lot of other conversations, the complexities of that conversation became thorny and important and difficult and real in ways for a lot of folks that I don't know, for some of us, because I'm not actually 23, I don't know that it had been real in those kinds of ways before that. And the play is picking up on that conversation. And to extend it, I think the thing that I'm working with is I have friends who, before 2020 and during 2020 and even now, their way of dealing with conflict, of dealing with struggle in an organization is to say, if it's broke, give me kerosene and a match, I'm finna burn it all down. Mm. And that I love that the universe and God and everything have brought me into conversation with those folks, but that is not me. And so I have spent a lot of time observing and thinking, oh, I must not be a real artist, a real activist, a real political being if I'm not ready to toast it all. Part of the journey that this play has reminded me is we need those folks. We also need people who are going to come in and stand amongst the ashes and the debris and say, okay, what next? Right. And I think this play is me working through that. It's me trying to find out to explore what happens when both of those impulses say that they are after the same thing, say that they are after the same story, the same goal of justice, of creation, of honoring, and yet the tools start to be turned against each other. And how do you deal with that? So here we go.
And I think it does. I mean, I think the play is already, it's such a, yes. Stand among the ashes. Stand among the ashes is a real thing. Stacey, I mean, I guess a version of that question too is, some of my smartest colleagues and peers in the field right now are deeply also talking about, yes, the structure that Darren's talking about and Mathilde's talking about, but also what are audiences? What does it mean to be, what is our responsibility as artists to audiences? Do we have one? What is our expectation? What is centered in the practice of being an artist in terms of, certainly in terms of all, and I'm not just saying sort of that whiteness as in white people, but there is the monolith around what theater can be perceived as and has been, is challenging in some ways. I'm curious for you, as you think about more than just Trapped, but especially with Trapped, what are you thinking about as an artist right now and audiences?
So it's funny because when I first started thinking about this piece, I started thinking about who I wanted in a theater that I hadn't seen in a theater. And I'm not even talking, I'm talking like I grew up, as the children say, I got it in the mud. I don't know, but basically I grew up poor in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And the way that I got to see theater was I got to see theater because I was moved into a gifted and talented program in like 3rd grade. And that school took us to see like the Nutcracker and like whatever they were taking their kids to see, as field trips. And so that's kind of was my first exposure to theater. Now, schools located within my neighborhood were not doing a lot of that at all. And so those conversations weren't happening, right? and I'm interested, like, because I'm interested in broadening the idea of what theater is for people who typically don't go to theater. Like, I think if you can come to something like Trapped and you're a regular theater goer and you get into it and you find your way into it, because Trapped is actually having a very insular conversation. It's having a couple of insular conversation. One conversation is, how do I, as a fat Black woman, reconcile my relationship with the music that is so violent and violently misogynistic, misogynoiric, but it has also been like the foundation of, like, I'm a child of hip hop, like, that's where I grew up, in that area. So it's just like, so those are conversations that are very nuanced and very insular, and not something generally that folks who typically are theater goers may find themselves interested in, right? Like, I was told, and I don't know if this is still the statistic, the white woman over in her 50s, you know, with a master's degree or better, I don't know if that person's going to be interested in this piece. I'm interested in having, because I have always seen the theater as kind of a church and a place to come together and commune and have conversations, whether it's an audience of 5 or 10, like we just had at our first play festival we had, or it's an audience of 700, right? So it's just sort of like, if I can get people who don't typically come to theater and they can see themselves or see conversations that they themselves are having, it, for me, and in my naive mind, that becomes some type of draw, and they begin to get a more dynamic picture of what theater is and what it can be. So to answer the question, like, I think about a very specific audience when I write all of my work. I wrote Legacy Land for survivors because I'm a survivor. I wrote As Is for Fat Black Women because I'm a fat Black woman. And so if other people can get behind it and find themselves in it, which those stories are universal in ways, if you just open up and look at it, they're universal in ways that, you know, it requires unpacking, but it's there. But just the conversations I want to have are with the people I'm writing towards. And those are the people who I want to see in the seats, whether they are like, because this is not like, of course, Black folks go to theater, but and theater, that the word theater is nuanced even within a Black community. I can't even, you know, I can't go by the standard of the white American theater and go, well, if you've been to XYZ theater and this, then you are a playwright, then you have been christened and you are a part of the American theater. When I can go and see a church play on Sunday that gives me as many feels. So really shaking up and fucking up that conversation is what I'm interested in. And I think part of what is so uncomfortable about making things like Trap is, like, the whole time, the part of me that wants to be part of the American theater landscape is like, who's gonna come see this? And the answer is the people who need to come see it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And that should, for me as a theater, like, I can't, like, the dream that the white American theater is selling is not something that is attainable or realistic. So I really do have to be nuanced in my approach and all of and how I, you know, see myself within this industry. So I do have to think about, you know, the parts of me that I want to connect with audiences who don't often get thought about in these spaces, and really kind of be open, right, to because you know, I may not go up at a bigger off-Broadway theater, but regionals you may latch on, like, you know. So it's just because what I'm writing is speaking to their specific, you know, area. So it's just, I don't know, I'm thinking that in much more complicated and nuanced ways about audience and why I even do this. So I hope that answer wasn't a mess, but
yeah,
that was really
I mean, no, that was brilliant. I mean, I kind of, you know, no dummy me, I mean, mostly, but in the world of Stacey Rhodes, I want to talk about it. So we have your thinking tonight, and that's really important. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I also just want to name too, part of what we do at Playwright Center is we have a group of about 120 theater companies around the world, primarily in the United States, with whom we partner to kind of co-develop and help support them as they are kind of doing new work. And that certainly is more important than ever. And we've got some great colleagues with us tonight. I just want to, I'm just naming it. I did earlier and I'm doing it again. There's been a tough time the past couple of years since we all been together. And everyone is working overtime to try to figure it out. And I feel grateful to be in a generation, I don't mean that age-wise, but in a sort of emotional, spiritual generation of artists right now that are really trying to think about and then act on and enact with accountability how we make change, how that needle moves.
And there's an unlearning that has to happen that comes with that too. There is, and I'm finding it for myself, where I find myself bemoaning, like I've never been produced in New York in 1 minute, but at the other minute, I'm hosting like a room full of women watching short plays about Charlotte that, you know, their cousin wrote, and finding so much love and welcoming and warmth in that setting and being like, oh, that's why I come here. That's why I do this. That's why I make theater. It's not for the accolades and the things, like, yes, I've gotten those things and I've done that, but there's something fundamental within me as a theater artist who does it just to gather people. And it felt so good to gather people after everything we've been through. So it's just, yeah, I think there's so many more complicated ways. And if I could have talked to my, you know, the 2017 self who was like on like Jeremy, I'm never gonna get an agent. Jeremy, I'm never gonna write for television. Like, I would like to snatch that bitch up and be like, girl.
You are exactly where you're supposed to be.
But you needed her to be her now.
That's
yeah,
right.
for sure.
But I'm for different, you know, obviously as a white woman, I have a different set of circumstances, but I connect there's a part that connects so deeply with what you're saying, which is around redefining ambition, redefining success, redefining, because the truth is it may never happen for any of us, right? Like, who the fuck knows? And actually many people I know who are getting the kind of success that I once dreamed of are also unhappy because the next, and you can get stuck in that mindset.
You better talk. You better talk,
honey.
because baby.
And so, I think the idea of how do I find, you know, if I want to have a sustainable life in the theater, how do I find the joy in being in a rehearsal room in Minneapolis with these amazing actors that I didn't know, and spend 2 weeks with, you know, my director flew over with me and was there was the person who drove my husband and I to the hospital when my son was born, and then flew to Belgium when my mom died and was at her funeral. And the idea that he could be in the room working on this play, which is about those things. And then that these are, you know, it's that is so much more meaningful in some ways than getting a New York Times review, right? Like there's something, but we learn that behavior, and we learn to want those things. And so I think also it's around like, how do we teach, and how do we as an industry, you know, create for artists who are at any stage in their career, but how do we create a system that doesn't, you know, we were talking earlier about pitting us against each other and things like that. How do we figure out how to find moments to celebrate?
Yeah. And the other thing I hear you saying too, that I think the Playwright Center has forced me to think more about, is to start to think holistically about myself and my being, right? Like, to get away from, I am defined as a playwright, so if I'm not writing the play and creating dialogue and getting it to an agent, getting out to places, then I am not a thing. I am no longer that being. It's like, no, I need the space to recover. I need the space to rest. And if I am producing a piece in Lawrence, Kansas, if it is in Queen City New Play Initiative, then that is not only doing the thing that's part of the dream, it's me walking in whatever I thought was my purpose as well, right? And to Harrison put in the, quoting you, the redefine, that it's that constant process of pausing, giving ourselves the place to pause and say, okay, I did do a thing, but am I open to trying another thing and pushing other people to come on board? And the grace.
And the grace.
Yes,
and
Harrison,
the
grace.
And the
Because we
grace.
don't give ourselves enough grace. It's a lot of, like, it took, when I ran, I'm telling you, it was like running into Darren in Kansas. I was so miserable. And I was so like bound up. I don't know why you always find me in these points in my life, Darren. But I was in a knot. I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I haven't written one single fucking word. And what am I doing? And he's like, well, maybe you don't write a word. And that shit was revelatory. I was like, maybe I don't write a word. And he was like, yeah, maybe you don't write a word. Well, and then of course I get home and it's word vomit for like for like 2 days. When I get, like, of course, the day of the first rehearsal, I'm like, still writing. Like, what the fuck? But yeah.
How do you learn process? I mean, that's, I think, the thing that for me is so exciting about what the three of you have centered yourselves and surrounded yourselves with is, you know, as Daniel Alexander Jones says, right? Like, then that path isn't for you. If it was for you, it would be for you. If it's not for you, it's not for you. And if the path that is for you in this moment is, I am meant to be up against it to figure out why words aren't coming, and the next thing I can do is connect with an artistic and creative colleague and friend and have that moment, or Mathilde, if that moment is happening in the back of a car on the way to X, then that is for us. That is where we are supposed to be, apparently, because that's where we are, and that's what we got. I'm going to bring this conversation to a close because you know that the four of us could sit here all night long, and these poor people at home need to go home. So
three of y'all would have me here forever.
And would if we were in Minneapolis. To be clear, if we were in Minneapolis, it would be a wrap.
Yeah, you want to come to the meal that the four of us are having together. It's a good meal. So all right, let's move on out. A few things of note. First of all, please see these plays. Julia just popped it back in the chat. This is the link to it. You need to sign up. You're going to get an email from the amazing Catherine, and then your whole world is going to open up with beautiful theater in front of you. Please do that as well. I think all three artists are really writing towards something stunning and important and courageous and scary and funny and like sexy, and I love it. I love it all. I'm here for all of it. I think about those words, and I think about the fact that it is, as you said, Darren, you know, it is our 50th anniversary this year. 50 years that Barbara Field and some other playwrights came together and formed this organization, just so, as y'all said, so people had a place to come and hear story together and to share that with one another. Okay, so 50. And a lot has changed in the last couple of years, as we're talking about, but so much of the way that we support writers is an even more urgent priority than ever. We are committed to helping playwrights make a living, to support the development of their work and connect them to theater leaders like the amazing folks that are here tonight around the country and around the world. Let us not limit where story happens so beautifully in many other places. And since we started doing online programming in March of 2020, ye old 2020 that we're all talking about today, we have created over 700 paid jobs for playwrights and theater artists. I'm just going to say that again, 700 additional new jobs that are paid for playwrights and theater artists. And I'm saying that not because of whatever, I'm saying it because that sustainability is a real thing, and it looks like very different things, and it is a barrier to access for people to work. So paying people for their work is critical. That must change. We must unlearn what we must unlearn and relearn, as you said. Access, Ana Sofia Villanueva, who is our Director of Impact and Engagement, is constantly talking about equitable access, and it's really something that we've been centering at the Playwrights Center for a while. One of the ways that we're trying to do that is online forum, because rather than 80 people sitting here, we can do that and then also be able to share it out with the world. Since we've been doing this the last 2 years, over 500% more people have seen things at the Playwright Center, which is huge, and they're all free. That is like 7,000 people seeing Playwrights work and understanding what a playwright is, maybe just a little bit more. The public support of the center is crucial for us and for our artists. There's so many amazing people here tonight who are donors and supporters of Playwright Center, and most importantly, to the artists themselves. I just want to thank you all for this very challenging moment, for finding it in your heart to say yes to playwriting and theater right now. If you are one of those people or not one of those people and you'd like to become one of those people, Julie just popped a link in the chat, pwcenter.org/donate. More than anything, adopt a playwright, commission a writer. Everyone's like, I just want to, I'm like, then just send them a commission, just commission them. But please do make sure that you go to our site, more than anything to the PlayLabs site that Julie's been sharing all night, to come see these 3 beautiful plays. Please check out the work of our amazing fellows. And a reminder that all of this is launching tonight and tomorrow. All right, so I said it at the beginning, Stacey, and I meant, before we go, I would love to invite all of y'all to raise a glass of whatever, to do the robot, to raise whatever beverage in whatever fancy cup or otherwise you use to celebrate.
The inside of this cup says "on my thought shit." I just wanted you to know that.
How appropriate.
And we would expect nothing less, baby.
I'm raising my berry lemonade to all of y'all.
And my mint, what's left of my mint tea.
And your mint tea, and help us send off these amazing plays and these brilliant writers all across the board into our 38th PlayLabs Festival. We love you. Thank you for your craft, your heart, your inspiration, and your challenges to us, and for your gift of story. Thank you all at home for joining us. We can't wait to see you back here at the center soon. Go check out PlayLabs. We're launched. L'chaim, y'all.
I feel launched.
We're launched, baby. We're launched.
Float.
That was all honey in that sip. Okay.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.